Okay, so here's our first viewer submitted clip. Um, this one it took place in a Halls of Atonement, uh, level 11. Um, this week was Fortified, Inspiring, Storming, and Prideful, of course, because it's still season one. Um, so before I get into it, I just want to point out some things about the UI that I think are bad, and then I'll point out a couple things that I think are good. So we'll start with the bad things. First off, having your health up here is typically uh, not good. So it's you kind of make up for it by having your health in your party frames, so you can see how you're doing. Um, but usually, what I prefer, and you can see in my UI, I like to have my health separate from my party frames. I like to have it like right here, right next to your weak aura suite or whatever. That way, whenever you're looking at your character, you can kind of see out of the corner of your eye, hey, I've got, you know, I'm missing 3,345 HP, right? And it's easier. So on in the if you rank things by importance, your HP is more important to you than your party's HP. So first off, you're not the healer, so uh, you care less about your party's HP. And second off, you do 0 DPS if you're dead. So you care 100% more about how much HP you have versus your party. So you should reflect that in your UI. So this uh, this bar that shows how much HP you have should either be bigger than your party members or it should be separate from your party members. And I prefer to have it separate so that I can be like, hey, how am I doing? Okay, I'm doing fine. How's my party doing? Right? Rather than how are we doing? Because you care less about them and more about yourself. Sounds selfish. Sounds maybe a little conceited or whatever. But if you die, the only one looking out for you is you, basically. So um, that's a change that I would suggest. Maybe get your personal health, over here, uh, even down here. But I would not like that. Right here is like perfect for it. So and then I would take yourself out of these party frames. Maybe make them a little bit bigger, but if this size works for you, that's fine. And with your combat text coming right here, this positioning is fine as well. The other thing I would mention is this combat text is helpful, kind of. So it's good to know that you're being healed, and it's good to see that you're doing damage, but it's not crazy necessary um, because uh, you will still do the damage even if you don't see yourself doing it, right? Um, but I mean, this is like a personal preference thing. If you like it, who cares? It's not that big of a deal. The good things I want to mention are your weak aura suite is like right beneath your character. That's like very, very good. So you'll see this in like pretty much every high-end player, high-end DPS player. They'll pretty much always have their like, if they're using a weak aura suite like this to track their cooldowns, it'll be almost always very close to the center of their screen horizontally, and then they want it like directly beneath their character or maybe right to the side of their character, something like that. This just means that your eyes have to travel less distance. So right now, um, if you want to see, pretend that you're not in your party frames, okay? If you want to see uh, how much health you have at any given time, your eyes have to move this far, right? Pretty much the whole distance. Like you might even have to tilt your head to get your eyes to go that far, right? That's a long distance just to see how much health you have. Um, and you, like I said before, you do kind of mitigate that by having your health right here, right? So instead of having to go way up there, you could just look over here, which is a huge improvement for sure. But it would be so much easier if you could just go boom right there, you know, or even your eyes could stay right here and you could see your health using your peripheral vision, right? That's why, and the same is true for your weak aura suite. Um, you need to know when stuff is coming off cooldown, how much insanity you have, that kind of thing. You need to know all that stuff at pretty much every given moment during a fight. And so having it somewhere like this, where it's like in your peripheral vision at all times, that's a good thing. Good job. Um, the other thing I would mention is I think that having the action tracker is actually a good thing. So a lot of people will say that this is unnecessary and that there's no point in having it here. Um, the same could be said about these damage meters. Damage meters are really, a lot of people will argue that damage meters are just there to make you feel good, right? Um, but especially there are a couple of things that I disagree with there. Um, Having damage meters somewhere that's accessible but not in the way is good, because then let's say somebody dies and you want to know what killed them or something, you can you can do that while you're doing the key or whatever. So you could also see like interrupts, details tracks a ton of stuff. So it's good to have details windows. Pretty much everyone will agree that it's good to have them, but a lot of people will say that they're kind of pointless. They just make you feel good about yourself. I disagree. I think there is some functional use to them, so it's good to have them. Um, but the positioning of them is also really good right here. You don't need to see how much damage you're dealing during the course of the fight um, to make yourself do more damage, right? Uh, it's just kind of nice to see. And I do the same thing. I have my damage window uh, like over here, and so I do look at it during the fight, but it's mostly just to compare myself to how I think I should be doing at the time or whatever. So, like I was saying about the action tracker, I would actually suggest pretty much everyone who wants to get better at the game, I would suggest that you do find a place for an action tracker like this. This is the Details Streamer action tracker. It's the same one I use. You go into details. You go into details and then you go into plugins in the options settings. The options settings. Um, you can enable this action tracker, and I suggest that you do that, and then you put it somewhere like this, like way in the corner of your screen, where you're not going to look at it while you're playing the game. But if you were to ever record yourself and go back and watch how you played, an action tracker like this is super helpful, because then instead of being like, oh well, I think I cast a void bolt, oh I think I cast my shadow word pain right after that vampiric touch, but I can't really tell. You can see, I mean, very clearly. You just cast a power word shield, just had a mind flay, a devouring plague, a shadow word death, etc. Right? Um, and that's like the one of the biggest things that I would suggest to people who are trying to get better at the game is record yourself. And if you are going to record yourself, this makes it so much easier. So, as far as your UI goes, um, not bad. I would say it's pretty good actually. You've got a lot of important stuff that you need to see in spots that make it easy to see it, right? There are just a couple little things like you don't need this at all. You could move yourself down here. Um, I'm not sure where your target frame is. Your target frame should be somewhere that you can see it pretty easily. Like mine's right here, for instance. This floating combat text is not crazy important, but it's not bad. And then you know that's about it as far as the UI goes. So let's just jump into the fight and see what you can do better. Okay, very first thing. This is very 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 min maxy. When Echelon is jumping out of the door, he's not targetable, right? So you can't instantly target him. But when he lands, like right now, he is targetable, and you're not targeting him, right? So something that I like to do is when the tank goes to click on the door, point your camera towards the door where he's gonna jump out from, and then like follow him like this, like you did, and spam the tab button. You press tab, as long as you haven't changed the default hotkeys. Pretty much everybody knows this. You press tab, it'll target whatever you're looking at, or it'll change your target if you're already targeting something. And in the case where there's nothing to target, like when you're first looking at the door and there's no enemies around, right? You press tab, nothing will happen. And then as soon as Echelon becomes targetable, he's the only thing in this area that is targetable, so your tab will immediately go to him, right? So a very, very small thing, that is a nice change. You want to be doing. You want to always be casting. That's something that the WoW Analyzer website will tell you a lot. And so you want to start casting as soon as possible. So spam tab when he's jumping out of the door. Very small thing, but a nice change. And then yeah, you target him and you start fighting. So you're running Searing Nightmare here. So these are the correct spells you want to cast at the beginning. You want to cast your Vampiric Touch and then immediately your Shadow Word Pain. This way, anything that you follow up with is going to have 2 of the 3 dots on it, so you're going to get 2/3 of the value out of your mastery, which is not bad. And then after these 2, this Vampiric Touch and the Shadow Word Pain, you are running Void Torrent, and as you can see, it just came off cooldown. So a Void Torrent would be your next cast. So you want to do Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, Void Torrent. But instead, you cast the Mind Blast. This is not horrible, right? So it is good to cast Mind Blasts. A worse spell in this situation would have been a Mind Flay, let's say. So a Mind Blast here is better than a Mind Flay, but it's worse than a Void Torrent. So in the future, try to remember on a single target fight like this, especially Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, boom, Void Torrent. And then while you're in your Void Torrent, it gives you time to think about what you're going to cast next as well, because it's a channel, right? So you have a little bit of time where you don't have to be thinking about, oh crap, my GCD is coming up, I have to press something right now, right? You have time to sit in your Void Torrent and think, okay, what am I going to cast next? Okay, I'm going to cast this, right? And then you followed up that Mind Blast with a Mind Flay. This is also, your Void Torrent is off cooldown. Void Torrent is like Mind Flay on steroids, so if there's ever a time where you feel like it's a good idea to cast Mind Flay, and your Void Torrent is off cooldown, press Void Torrent instead. The only time I would say that is okay, so there are a couple of situations where that might not be the case, but in the general case, if you're inside of Void form, then maybe hold off on the Void Torrent and do cast the Mind Flay instead. But almost always, if you think it's a good idea to cast Mind Flay, and you have Void Torrent ready like you do, it's kind of hard to see because your boss abilities are in the way. That's another little UI thing that I would change. These boss abilities don't need to be right here. You could move them, maybe over here. The point of your weak auras is to be able to see them, and so if you have stuff covering it up, that's bad, right? Your Void Torrent is ready, and you want to cast Mind Flay, cast Void Torrent instead. So that's a small thing. As you can see, the Druid popped his cooldowns. The Demon Hunter is blasting. The Warlock has not popped his cooldowns yet, it seems, or he's ramping up at least. And you are, you're at 1.3k. Not horrible, especially considering you've only cast 4 abilities, right? And and one of the good things about this Mind Flay is that it did give you a Dark Thoughts proc, which means you get another Mind Blast, which is, not bad. One of the bad things, the bad thing about this Mind Flay, though, is that your Void Torrent is still not on cooldown, right? So, you cast this Mind Flay, you do use your Mind Blast during that Mind Flay channel, which is good. You cast your Devouring Plague, and then you Void Torrent. And honestly, not horrible. The Devouring Plague adds to your mastery that you're getting from this Void Torrent, so that's good. Your Void Torrent does more damage now than it would have done if you only had the 2. But in the long run, getting that 1 extra dot for that first Void Torrent is not worth it because you're going to lose casts of that Void Torrent later on in the fight because you spent finished your Shadow Word Pain, you spent the whole cast of Mind Blast not using Void Torrent, you spent most of the channel of Mind Flay not using it, you spent another that was your Dark Thoughts, and then you cast Devouring Plague, you spent, maybe 5-6 seconds here with Void Torrent off cooldown when you could have been pressing it. So at the end of the fight, if he dies within 6 seconds of your Void Torrent coming off cooldown, then you missed a Void Torrent, right? Which means your damage is lower. So that's something you can look at doing. Okay, and now the very big thing is get into Void form ASAP. So Right now you're casting a Mind Blast. This Mind Blast should wait. Just don't cast it. You have Power Infusion off cooldown. It's like almost impossible to see because of these boss abilities right now, but your Power Infusion is ready, and your Void Eruption is ready. You should be in Void form ASAP. So don't cast this Mind Blast, cast a Void Eruption right now. You could say, but I'm trying to, watch my positioning because these Stone Fiends are coming out, or, there's a myriad of reasons why you might think that this Mind Blast is better, but it's not. Get into Void form ASAP. So you cast this Mind Blast. Oh, actually, you don't cast this Mind Blast. You try, and then you cancel it at the very, very last second. That's not a huge deal. Obviously, you would rather it go off if you are going to spend the time trying to cast it. But there's not. It's really hard to like work on not canceling your abilities like that. But that is something to keep in mind. If you are going to spend time standing still, casting an ability, it should go off, right? You're better off having cast a Void Eruption there anyway, so not a huge deal. And then right now, it is important that you kill these Stone Fiends ASAP. So you're casting a Mind Seer. I would, instead of casting this Mind Seer right now, cast a Void Eruption. Get into Void form. And then cast the Mind Seer. It just, having Void Eruption, being in Void form gives you full value of your mastery on everything you're hitting. So your Searing Nightmare damage that you're about to do to these Stone Fiends will be 3 times your mastery stronger if you're in Void form. So don't use the Searing Nightmare spam right now when your Void Eruption is ready. Cast Void Eruption, cast Power Infusion, and then start blasting with Searing Nightmares, and it will do significantly more damage. Instead, you cast your Mind Seer, a couple Searing Nightmares. That's fine. You're also, so you had Shadow Crash ready as well. So we go back just a little bit to when this started. Yeah, so your Shadow Crash is ready. So probably the best move here would be, if you're not going to go into Void Eruption, which you didn't, a Searing Nightmare to put Shadow Word Pain on everything will give you 1 dot for your mastery, and then a Shadow Crash to follow that up will do pretty good burst damage to all this stuff, and then more Searing Nightmares would be good, because you want to put your Shadow Crash on cooldown ASAP, and your Shadow Crash loses a ton of value if it's only going to hit 1 or 2 things. It's way better if it hits 6 things, or 7 things in this situation, right? So Searing, okay, so ideally, right here, you would do Void Eruption, Power Infusion, Searing Nightmare once, Shadow Crash, Searing Nightmare spam until all the ads are dead, and then back to your single target rotation. Instead, you Mind Seer, and then Searing Nightmare a couple times. We'll watch Mind Seer, first Searing Nightmare, another Mind Seer, another Mind Seer, and then a Shadow Crash. So, spamming your Mind Seer back to back like that, there's no point. As long as you're channeling Mind Seer, you're fine to cast your Searing Nightmares. And it could be that you misclicked or that something else was going on, but during that Mind Seer, you should have cast another Shadow Crash, another Searing Nightmare instead of that second Mind Seer. But regardless, you got a Shadow Crash out, which is good now because it's on cooldown. Your Void, your Vampiric Touch is about to fall off, so you should refresh that, and you are, which is good. But yeah, you're doing 4.5k DPS, and part of that is because you did very little damage to the ads because all you got on them was a couple ticks of Mind Seer and 1 Searing Nightmare cast, right? That's all the damage you did to the ads, plus a little bit from the Shadow Crash at the end. You could have had your Void Eruption damage as all the little tendril things hit them. Then you could have had a Searing Nightmare cast, and then a Shadow Crash at full mastery, which would have been a lot. And then another Searing Nightmare, or even 2 more Searing Nightmares, which would have added to that damage. The ads would have died quicker. Your damage would be more than 4.5k. Okay, so now the ads are dead. the ads are dead, you get this Curse of Stone on you, which means you need to spread out from your team. You need to stay close in case you get the leap on you, so that you can break these things. But you need to spread out from your team in case one of them gets it. You can get out of the way before he starts jumping at them. So you get your Vampiric Touch out. It goes on this guy. You run away. That's good. He gets the leap in. He hits the guy. Perfect. Next thing I would say, get into Void Form. So you're casting a Mind Blast again. There's no point. This Mind Blast, it can wait. It will do more damage in Void Form. So use your cooldowns, get into Void Form right now. No point casting this Mind Blast. You cast the Mind Blast, and then look, you do get into Void Form. That's good. Cast your Power Fusion. So now, and I will say that casting a Mind Blast right before going into Void Form is not a bad thing usually, because you put it on a 6-second cooldown only for it to be immediately refreshed when you get into Void Form, because you get 2 charges of Mind Blast instantly in Void Form. So if you are going to go into Void Form, having Mind Blast on cooldown is a good thing, right? So it's good that you are in Void Form now. You should have been in Void Form, maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds before this. Your damage would be significantly higher. So now let's see how you manage this Void Form rotation. So as you can see over here, Void Eruption, good. Power Infusion immediately in Void Form, also good. It's not on the GCD, so you can cast it at the exact same time, or even during the GCD or whatever. And then your next GCD, you cast Void Bolt. That's perfect, especially if you're running Hungering Void. Next, you cast a Mind Blast. Also fine. You're not at 50 Insanity, so you can't cast a Devouring Plague. So this Mind Blast is fine. Plus, you're in Void Form already, so you're getting full value out of your Mastery even without a Devouring Plague on the guy. Totally fine. First Mind Blast goes out. Your Insanity hits 56. Now would be a good time for a Devouring Plague. Instead, you cast the Mind Blast. Not a horrible idea. Devouring Plague hits harder than Mind Blast, though, so putting your Devouring Plague up would be a better use of this global than the Mind Blast. But it doesn't matter too much because you cast the Mind Blast, and then you cast your Void Bolt, and then you cast Devouring Plague. So it's good that you're casting Void Bolt as soon as possible, so that Void Bolt was good, but I would like to have moved this Mind Blast and this Devouring Plague. This Devouring Plague should be where this Mind Blast is, and this Mind Blast should be where this Devouring Plague is. And then yeah, you're just into your single target rotation. That Devouring Plague goes out, and then you cast the Mind Flay. This is fine because your Mind Blast is on cooldown. Your Devouring Plague, you can't cast another one because you're not at 50 Insanity. Your Void Bolt is also on cooldown, which means the only thing that you can really cast right now is Mind Flay, which is good. So you're casting your Mind Flay, so that's good. And then you cast another Mind Blast, and you follow it up with a Mind Flay. Also fine. Your Void Bolt wasn't quite on cooldown yet, so that Mind Flay is fine. And you canceled that Mind Flay with that Void Bolt. As you can see, it's flying right now, so that's good. Your Devouring Plague is about to fall off, so actually that Mind Blast probably puts you over. Yeah, so this Mind Blast has you over 50 Insanity. It's hard to see because these boss timers are in the way. Again, move those, please. But that Mind Blast did put you over 50 Insanity, so instead of casting this Mind Flay right here, you should have cast a Devouring Plague. But it's not. I mean, it's a pretty big DPS difference, but So then a Devouring Plague there would have been good. You end up doing it after the Mind Flay, after the Void Bolt goes, so that's fine. Your Shadow Crash just came off cooldown, and your Unholy Nova is now off cooldown. Your Void Bolt is also off cooldown, and you're casting a Mind Blast. That's fine. Okay, then right here, that Void Bolt is good. You need to dodge this Blood Torrent as well. And it looks like your Shadow Fiend is also off cooldown, but it's kind of hard to see again with the boss mod thing. It's almost certainly the case that your Unholy Nova is more important than, let's say a Mind Flay. So you should be trying to get that Unholy Nova on cooldown as soon as possible. Your Void Torrent has been ready for a while as well, but inside of Void form, I rarely cast Void Torrent, so it's fine that you're not. Um, let's see, another Mind Blast, that's fine. Void Bolt as well, that's fine. Need to dodge this guy, so you walk away, that's good. Your Shadow Word Death, he's below 20% HP now. Your nameplate doesn't really show it because there's like no line or anything to tell you. But you have a weak aura that lights up when it will do more damage, so that's good. So you could not Devouring Plague. You could use your Shadow Word Death while you're running away from this guy to do more damage, but it doesn't matter too much. You get stunned from the Stone Shattering Leap or whatever, and then yeah, I mean this is the end of the fight. There's not much more that's going to happen. So you need to refresh your dots. You should be casting Void Torrent as soon as your dots are refreshed. So you should, right now, you should Vampiric Touch, then you should Shadow Word Pain, then you should Devouring Plague, and then because the boss is so low on HP, he is summoning ads right now. So you might want to kill those ads, but because he's so low on HP, you're better off just ignoring the ads completely. So as he's dying, you want to do Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, Devouring Plague, so you have full value of your mastery, and then immediately Void Torrent. And I'm not positive as far as Necrolord Unholy Nova goes, but I'm pretty sure it does add to your mastery. If somebody could correct me in the comments, that'd be awesome. If it does add to your mastery, so that you get 4 times your mastery rather than 3, then casting your Unholy Nova here might not be a horrible idea. The only problem is that you might not get full value out of the dot because he's about to die, right? So holding it might be fine, but it might be a single target increase to use your Unholy Nova if it does add to your mastery. So so let's see what you do. Vampiric Touch, Shadow Word Pain, Devouring Plague, and then Shadow Word Death. Okay, so not horrible. You got 3 of the 4 things correct in the way that I would have done it. And the Shadow Word Death, honestly, is not too bad. So it's better than a Mind Flay. And then you do cast Void Torrent. So really, these last 5 spells, for all intents and purposes, just fine. Not bad at all. You have to cancel your Void Torrent just a little early to dodge that Blood Torrent. Nothing you can do about that. That's just RNG. So you just kind of got screwed there. But you did cancel it very, very late, which is good. You got hit by that Blood Torrent, but not a huge deal because the boss is about to die. You'll have some time to heal up, and it lets you do a little bit more damage from that Void Torrent. And then, yeah, I mean, the boss dies. That's the end of the Echelon fight. So, hopefully I didn't come across as too, like, rude. I don't think that, I mean, the whole point of these videos is to get feedback, right? So I don't think you're a bad person, you know, if you are playing incorrectly or whatever. So hopefully it doesn't come off too rude. I want to say thank you for submitting this clip, and hopefully you learned something. Hopefully everybody learned something. For anybody who wants this kind of feedback specific to them, feel free to join my Discord. You could, you know, reach out to me through a DM or post in the Discord or whatever, and I can, you know, take a look at your video as well and, you know, give you some feedback like this. But all in all, you ended up only doing like 1.6k DPS less than the other 2 DPS. And honestly, that's not bad. So, I mean, you were pretty close to these guys. There were a couple things in there that would have easily put you at 6k, right? Maybe, you know, like if you had optimized your cooldowns better, you know, got more value out of your mastery, etc. You would have at least been closer to where these guys are. But you know, in the long run, you live and you learn. So, thanks a lot for watching. Again, thank you for the clip, and I hope you enjoyed. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.